Hot for TV.
Welcome back to Doctor Who Too Hot for TV. We are the podcast that looks at all things Doctor Who Extended Universe. Today, I have a new guest to add to the roster of guests that we've had on the season so far. It's Ross from the General Witchfinders podcast. Ross, how are you?
Hello. I'm glad that I'm on the roster now before I even been tested. You know, you might have to edit that bit out if I'm shit.
Okay, will do. Definitely will do. But I'm sure you'll be fantastic. I've heard your podcast. I know that you've got opinions aplenty to share on various bits of ephemera.
Yeah. But usually I have to have two other guys with me who manage to sort of like talk when I don't know what I'm going to say. So yeah, there's usually three of us.
Well, there's just the two of us today. And before we jump into things, we're going to do a couple of very different things today, I think, for the podcast. But we'll talk about those in a little bit. First of all, I need to ask you, how did you become a Doctor Who fan?
I'm quite nervous about saying I'm a Doctor Who fan because I am the person, out of all the people I know, my friends and family where I live, I'm the person who's most into Doctor Who. However, listen to all the people you have on your show, I just know nothing. So if I say anything which is wrong, or mispronounce anything, you know, feel free just to shout at your iPhone. But yeah, so I do like Doctor Who quite a bit. I talk about it way too much to my wife. I do have lots of Doctor Who stuff up on my shelves, but I'm not as big a fan as your usual guest. But I would say I can always remember Doctor Who being on TV, and my dad was really into like anything science fiction related. I think my earliest Doctor Who memory, so Peter Davison floating around in space throwing a cricket ball. What's that from?
Thought of Doomsday. Okay,
so that's I've got that in my mind, but I'm not sure if that's a mixture of the adventure game with the thing like they have to walk across in space. Those two things are sort of merged together in my mind. But that's my earliest memory of Doctor Who, and also going to Madame Tussauds when I was probably about 5. And in my mind, Peter Davison and K9 were outside the TARDIS, and when you went into the TARDIS, there was loads of Daleks moving around and shouting and screaming. And I freaked out so much that the people at Madame Tussauds made my dad remove me from that part of the exhibition, and he left me outside next to a waxwork of Elvis, whilst he went back in to do the thing. And then I pretended to be a waxwork model in order to sort of like pass the time whilst I was left outside there. So that's my earliest memory. There used to be a video shop near us, which was opened by Darth Vader. I'm sure it wasn't Dave Prowse, just a man in Darth Vader's outfit. But they had Doctor Who videos, which you could rent for 50p a day. So at the weekends, I always used to rent Doctor Who videos. It was the Terror of the Zygons I used to get a lot. And I think Invasion of the Dinosaurs. But I'm not sure. Now, someone's going to say that was never on VHS. But it was a John Pertwee. So I used to watch them a lot as a kid. We used to watch it on UK Gold when on TV, but then when I really got into it is when I went to university I've written down 1996 to 1999. So Doctor Who wasn't on then, was it? No. So, but I met my friend John, who's one of the co-hosts on General Witchfinders, and he was hugely into Doctor Who. We were making videos, and we was at art college, so basically just sort of fucking around all the time making stuff. So he brought in videos of, he used to make little like stop motion films about Doctor Who with his little action figures. And he was challenged to a Doctor Who quiz with our philosophy lecturer, who was a big Doctor Who fan. And so I had to do the questions for it. And then, so I got this book. I was trying to find it today. It was like a Doctor Who trivia book. It had a picture of the TARDIS on the cover. And I researched all the questions for that. And that's what got me back into Doctor Who after that point. And it was just essentially, so we just used to fuck around at university, like, so we'd have a day like, oh, we're going to go to so it was at university in Cardiff. We're going to go to the costume store for BBC Wales and blag our way in and just get loads of costumes and take pictures of ourselves about this is what the Doctor would look like. Right. And take photographs of ourselves with like little Dapol Daleks and stuff. John made like a replica of K9 and we should just drag it around on fishing wire around the college and film that, and then put that in for a piece of artwork and stuff. And I can remember writing letters to the BBC and it would be a case of like, have you considered bringing back Doctor Who? I think you can make it really cheaply, because just set it all in the past, because you've got all costumes for like period dramas, and maybe you could have David Jason being the Doctor, that as if like no one had had that idea of like bringing back Doctor Who, and just thinking they're going to do it because I've written a letter into it.
I mean, you say you're not a Doctor Who fan, but that is pretty Doctor Who fanish behaviour.
Yeah, but this is Doctor Who fandom without watching or reading or doing.
Yeah.
It's all about. This is what I was talking to you about earlier. Like, I enjoy fandom around the ephemera of just getting excited about the idea of it.
Right.
Probably more than watching or reading or actually consuming any of the media itself. I just get excited about the idea and the creativity, and just I get excited about people being excited about it. That's why I'm really into like Doctor Who podcasts. I've listened to hours and hours and hours, as ridiculous, like years worth of podcasts about this stuff, and still haven't watched all of Doctor Who. So what's going on there?
Well, I mean, I think I do get what you're saying, because realistically, the only Doctor Who I consume, which is a fair amount, but is for podcasting. The rest of the time, I'm listening to other people on podcasts talking about Doctor Who or similar things, and sort of getting enjoyment through it that way. And it may be something that I've seen 1,000 times, but the chances are I don't want to watch Terror of the Zygons again. But hearing somebody whose voice and opinions I like on a podcast talk about Terror of the Zygons is weirdly more interesting to me now than actually watching the thing.
For a short period of time, I got into Bond, but not into the idea of Bond, and more about like the idea of like, it was like in my mind, they've never made a good Bond film, but the idea of Bond is really good, and that they could do it. In my mind, it was like, why do you just make it? Set it in the 60s, just do it in the 60s, and do it like, and then it's all, and I'll just go off on flights of fancies of like taking that nugget of an idea and how what could be done with that, And I think that's what I like about the stuff you talk about on your podcast. It's just like people just like saying, okay, let's just take that little thing and just like expand upon that, and even if it's shit, I just like the idea of that people just getting excited about it, and that sparking their creativity and like getting together with their mates and making stuff. Yeah, one of the things we're going to talk about later. The best part about it was listening to the DVD commentary afterwards, of them talking about making it. For me, was more exciting to me than the actual thing itself.
Excellent. It's interesting what you were saying about not being able to consume it all yourself. I've quite recently started listening to a podcast about all the ITC shows, and I've got most of them on DVD, which I picked up in various network sales, but I cannot claim to have watched any of them through all the way, apart from The Prisoner, which was ITC, right? I think it was. But having someone watch it all through for me, tell me the good ones, so I can actually pop in and watch the odd episode or something, but also learn all the behind the scenes stuff and hear everybody's opinion, is like, oh, actually this is the perfect way for me to do that without watching hundreds and hundreds of hours of television from the 60s and 70s. So it's weird that podcasting can give you immediate access to something that you're probably never going to experience yourself. Well,
I could turn the laptop around and show you I got the enormous wall of I will twist it around it. That's like, can you see my bookshelves over there?
I can indeed.
Yeah. Okay. Most of that stuff I've never read, but it's a case of I like getting books, reading the back and thinking that sounds really good, buying it and then putting it on the shelf, and that's it.
I have a similar one just there. I can't show it you because I'm on a big monitor, but it is full of books of things that I'm like, I will read that one day, but I know I never will.
No, but it's just like, oh, that sounds amazing. Yeah. Never read it.
But they look good on the shelf, don't they?
Exactly. But I still own that idea. It's still there. There's the potential of that story is on that shelf.
It's that thing when people come round and go, oh, well, what's that like? And you have to go, yeah, I've never read it. And they'll go, what about that one?
Yeah, do you want to borrow it and let me know what it's like? Because I'm not going to do it. Yeah, and one of the things we're going to talk about is very similar to like, that looks good, and it was potentially going to be good, but
well, I mean, we'll get to that in a second. But
yeah.
I mean, you've said you don't really class yourself as a Doctor Who fan, or you're scared to, but you are definitely a Doctor Who fan. But I guess I want to know then after that is, I talk about a lot of quite niche stuff. Do you have any relationship with Doctor Who beyond the TV show, be it comics, books, audios, anything like that? Is that something that you've explored at all?
Yeah, so I've read a few novels. So one of the things I was really into, I got into a phase of, I knew Big Finish existed, but I couldn't afford to buy it at that point. So I started like searching the internet for fan-made audios adventures. So I got through a phase of like that was how I used to go to sleep, by downloading like really poor fan-made audios, where often there would just be, someone would be the master and it'd just be lots of him like there was a point when, for convoluted reasons, my girlfriend at university in Cardiff ended up doing an extra year there. So she was still in student housing, and then I illegally lived in her house with her. So, but when she went on holidays, I was working in Toys R Us in Cardiff at the time, trying to get a job. When she went like back for some holiday stuff, I was staying in the house when I wasn't meant to. So I would only go back to the house like late at night because I didn't want to get caught by the landlord that I was living there. So what I used to do is go to Cardiff when I wasn't working at Toys R Us and trying to get a job in television, because I was kept doing like free work for BBC Wales, but never managed to get any paid work there.
Right.
And then really annoyed, anyway, didn't get to work on Doctor Who, but loads of people I knew ended up getting to work on there, which is really fucking annoying. Yeah, so what I used to do is go to Cardiff Library and listen to what I now discovered because I didn't know what they were, like Doctor Who audios, but when they weren't, it was the ones with Sylvester and Sophie where they weren't allowed to say they were
the BBV ones.
Yeah, so I used to just sitting there with tramps, like listening to the Doctor Who audios on headphones, waiting for it to get dark so I could sneak back to the house and then hope that the landlord didn't turn up and I had to hide in the wardrobe until we left.
The tramps weren't listening to these BBV audios as well, were they?
I don't know what they were listening to. And it was listen to BBV or Dinosaur Jr. That was just on the headphones in the corner. Yeah.
Amazing.
In a Toys R Us stripy blazer.
I too used to work in Toys R Us, but in Birmingham, so I know that blazer very well.
Yeah. Oh, cool. You was a product advisor as well, then, me.
A multimedia product advisor.
Oh.
Yeah, which...
so did you have, when they had the PCs there, did you have the Doctor Who CD-ROM game on the screen?
No, unfortunately not. I had it at home, but they did not stock that in our Toys R Us.
That was one of the display things they used to have on the PCs to entice people to buy a PC. So I never played it. I used to go past and look at it on the sort of the demo screen and stuff.
It was a terrible, terrible game.
Have you done that on the podcast?
I did it once, yeah, but I would do it again just because I feel like there's so many variations of the game playing that you can get out of it, but it is dreadful. But it was also magical at the time, because it was a new bit of Doctor Who at a time where there wasn't.
And it actually had the master on it, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Anthony Ainley recorded his new links. They're all up on YouTube for anybody that wants to watch them, of him being his mad old self.
What was it called? What was the game called?
Destiny of the Doctors.
Yeah.
But great fun.
Too hot for TV.
You've picked two very interesting things to cover today. Why don't you tell everybody what your first choice is?
So first, because I like Doctor Who, family members will buy me random Doctor Who stuff, and sometimes it's good stuff, sometimes it's a load of shit, and they just see Doctor Who on it, so it'd be like, here's a Doctor Who ruler, and it's like, well, I'm not going to need to measure anything 12 centimeters long, so thank you very much anyway. But I got the Doctor Who annual from 1977, which is the year I was born, and
excellent.
It's something I'd never read, but I was always intrigued by the batshit crazy illustrations in it, and I thought this would be an opportunity for me to force myself to read this.
Excellent. Well, read it we did. So the Doctor Who Annual 1977 was, of course, released in September of 1976.
Yes.
It was published by World Distributor. Other releases at the time, we had Terry Nation's Dalek Annual 1977, Doctor Who and the Daleks Omnibus, and Doctor Who and the Space War, which was a novelisation of Frontier in Space. Comics-wise, we had Mind Snatch, The Hoaxers, The Mutant Strain, and The Mighty Midget, which I don't know when you get away with that these days. And on TV was The Mask of Mandragora. So we are in the peak of 70s Doctor Who right here. Not a lot of... I've never read any of those comic strips, but I'm sure they're dreadful. The Dalek Annual, along with this, sat on my shelf as a kid for many years with only the pictures poured over.
Yes. Well, did you say something about a snatch? It's one of those stories.
Mind Snatch, yes.
Is there a story called with the word snatch in the title in this comic? I'm sure in this book. I'm sure.
Yes, there's the Time Snatch.
Yes, so it was a snatch heavy year for Doctor Who that year.
It was indeed. It was. So you've never read this before?
No. When I was a kid, if I ever got an annual which was like words in it, not like I used to get the Rupert annual. And I only ever looked at the cover because it was all just words inside. It's like, you don't want to read... Annuals don't have fucking words in it. It's got to be like the Beano or the Buster and stuff. But, yeah, no, I never had this as a kid. I hardly ever got annuals bought new, but I would get annuals from, like, car boot sales and stuff when I was a kid. Yeah. I got and they'd all be, like, for things I'd never actually were into, but it's just the fact that it was a... So I've got, like, this one here, like... The Starsky and Hutch annual from 1978.
Brilliant.
Never seen Starsky and Hutch at all, but I still got this. And I never, again, stories of words, never read that. I'd read the cartoon strips. The annuals from this era, and we'd come to the Doctor Who, they would just be really tenuous stuff just to fill up space.
Yeah.
Like, there are, how many pages? 8 pages of recipes in the Starsky and Hutch annual of, like, stuff which... sounded really exotic because stuff you would never eat yourself as a kid, like muesli. Like there's a recipe for muesli in there, you know, and coleslaw. You know, these strange. But I can remember. Look how they spell yogurt. Tangy yogurt. LOGHOUR. You know. Anyway. The all exotic American foods for kids.
Was Starsky and Hutch known for their culinary skills?
No.
I mean, I've seen like maybe 2 episodes in my lifetime of Starsky and Hutch, but I don't remember them being particularly like, I'm going to cook up a delicious feast halfway through this.
I can remember pestering Mum to make stuffed peppers because of this, and she never fucking did it. I just had to get this because look at this picture here. I don't know if that's Starsky or Hutch. He's wearing Tom Baker's scarf.
It could be Tom Baker, and I mean, I guess we'll come to the illustrations in the other book shortly, but they're not big on likenesses. Let's just say. No. So I have a bit of a similar relationship to annuals as you. I did have most of the Doctor Who annuals as a kid, all bought for me from car boot fairs. Again, things with a logo on. They just end even now, as you know. I found them impenetrable because, like you say, they're very wordy. Yeah. And as we'll get to in this, they're not exactly written in what I would say is the most child-friendly style a lot of the time. Yeah.
Or for anyone who's watched Doctor Who. It was like, or by anyone who's watched Doctor Who. But I always complain about, like, the annuals now. Because I said, like, you've got an opportunity. You've got a whole fucking year. I know they haven't got it yet, but you've got a whole year to make something amazing to like sum up the year of Doctor Who. Yeah, and it feels like you've churned something out over a weekend because it just and all it's got is just loads of pictures of like Daleks and Cybermen, and that's it. But at least that's about Doctor Who. Whereas I feel like these. Saying that's what my initial thought was. Like looking at this, it's like there's no Daleks in this. Yeah. There's no, but then I went and I watched Master Magdring, I watched The Hand of Fear, I watched Deadly Assassin, I watched The Face of Evil, and that's as far as I got. But but looking through, it's like, actually, it does actually sum up what the era of Doctor, because this era of Doctor Who wasn't Daleks and Cybermen, and it was just fucking mental stuff happening, and the Doctor turned up at weird places and not actually having much to do about what was happening around him until the last episode.
I mean, I think you're right. In certain ways, it is slightly evocative of that era of the television show. Not in terms of storytelling, but in terms of, as you say, the sort of bonkers nature of it.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting what you're saying about the annuals now. And I think it just basically means that annuals have always been a cheap, hastily put together time bit of merch that they
For
know
Christmas. Yeah.
they're going to sell X amount of copies at Christmas, and then they will be in the bargain bin by the end of January, and they will stay there until the end of time, because that is the only function of the annual.
Apart from these, I love these, the Panini storybooks.
The Panini story, yeah, but that's different, isn't it?
It's not an annual.
It may look like an annual, but someone's taken some time to write some half decent Doctor Who in there, I imagine.
Which end up becoming Blink, for example.
Yeah. I think the Lodger's also one in one of the annuals or one of the storybooks as well.
Yeah. I've got to stop showing you stuff. I know this is an audio format. I keep holding up things to the camera.
It's all right. As long as you say the name of it, it's fine.
Okay.
And the listenership, they'll know exactly what it is just by the rustle of the pages.
Yeah. They've probably got all of these things at arm's length reach to them as well. In their Mr. Trebus sort of like overflowing hoarders piles of Doctor Who ephemera, which is going to fall on top of them one day, and they're just going to die in happiness.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, I will also, because I feel like there's some key illustrations and pictures we're going to discuss during our time discussing this annual. I'll make sure that when I post it on Twitter, the pictures are available for all to see. So feel free to refer to as many visuals as you want.
Sure.
Let's just talk a little bit about I'm just going to go to the contents page and the contents of this annual.
Oh, can we talk about the cover first?
Oh, yeah, we can. Yeah, let's start on the cover.
Start on the cover. The DR Who.
Yes.
So it's DR Who, not Doctor Who. So you've got a pretty good rendering of Tom on the cover.
You do?
Yeah, with sparkles on his scarf, which is interesting that he's got a sparkly scarf. But then, what is he surrounded by? I couldn't work it. Like, it looks like Danny Dyer in the top corner with a moustache. He looks like he's either coming or having some kind of like drug sort of haze on there. Then a big eyeball on the other side. And it feels like, does that wrap round to show you? No, it's just another picture of Tom on the back. And then there's like some kind of like dark sort of like battle sort of going on there. Maybe that's like some kind of like a medieval battle or I don't know. And then there's this like, is that the TARDIS in space there? There's like a black area.
I thought it was the wing of something, but you're right, it's the TARDIS. There's
no pictures of the TARDIS. Are they allowed to show the TARDIS?
I don't know how much they're allowed to show.
No.
Based on the likenesses. But that medieval battle that's happening, there isn't a medieval battle in the annual.
No.
It's all fairly false advertising.
Yeah, but this is the cover. If you're going to spend time on anything, spend it on here, rather than just put like random shit. Oh, I'm going to draw an eye. It is insane.
I mean, in many ways, the face Tom Baker is pulling on the front cover is how I felt when I was reading the book.
I'm sorry I ruined your holiday. I saw you was reading this on holiday.
No, it was wonderful. It was. I mean, truthfully, it's the only time I ever read any Doctor Who related stuff like this. It's like when I'm sat on a beach or sat in a bar somewhere.
At least you had a drink.
Yes, well, yeah, quite a few actually in the end to get through this. But it was not ruined at all because I had a great time reading this book.
Okay, good.
I mean, it's part of the Doctor Who universe that I've only really dipped into since doing this podcast, and we've only done a couple of annually things, and I do want to do more. Once you get past the cover, you get into the contents page, which is full of wonderful illustrations, which there's something that looks a bit like the Deadly Assassin Master, except we haven't had that yet on television, I don't think.
But is it Tom's face? But it's like blue, and it's kind of like it's just rotting away, and like bits of it are like being pulled off into like a vortex of a man just throwing up his hands in despair and disappearing into like a scribbled hole. And there's another man just falling off a cliff.
Yes.
And we're not going to go into this much detail for every page, but I think then there's Tom sort of like crouched in the back of him. Yeah. You know, that's the bit everyone wants to see. Is the back of Tom Baker. Then a hand. These are like doodles someone would like scribble on their like pencil case or something.
Yeah.
There was kind of a TARDIS here.
Yes, but again, like, and this isn't just my copy. It looks like you could almost see the biro work that's gone into some of these illustrations, because they're actively trying to deface it for some reason to make it not look like the TARDIS.
It does look like people have scribbled all over it. And there's kind of some kind of like sort of effect, something Tony Hart would show you how to do, where they sort of drip ink onto the page. Looks like a unit soldier there.
Well, no, this is the only time you'll get another recognisable character in this book. That is a photo of Sergeant Benton that they've sort of fuzzied up a little bit.
Pointalized, isn't it?
Yeah.
We said, I think every picture of Tom in here is a painting or a sketch of a photograph you've seen.
They're all recognisable.
Yeah, and often the same photograph repeated over and over again.
Yes.
And then, is that Sarah Jane? But like she's like screwing up her face as if like someone's waved a shitty finger under her nose or something. And there's lots of pictures of people, outlines of people throughout the book just running. Like negative spaces of people running into the distance. Like it's like a fucking nightmare, isn't it? It's like this. The first spread is like, I haven't had mushrooms because I can't get anyone to give them to me. But this is why I imagine I'd be afraid that this would come to me in some kind of like mushroom trip.
Somebody said on Twitter to me about this that it's like those AI things now when you put in a prompt and it comes up with a picture. This is the 1970s equivalent of that. It's like the AI machine hasn't seen Doctor Who, but it's got enough evidence to say this is what it might be like.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to cheat today because I find all of these stories in here, I forget them as soon as I read them. So tried to get AI. I said, could you summarise all the stories from the 1977 Doctor Who annual? And it did a pretty good job. For all of them, apart from one, it started talking about Eldred in one of them. And I was like, oh, hang on, did I miss that?
No one's paying for the use of the character of Eldred in this. There are 7 stories in this annual. There are 2 comic strips. And then there are at least 20 other pages or articles that have nothing at all to do with Doctor Who.
They got to do with space.
Yes.
Maybe. But there is one which is just like conspiracy theories and made up shit about space, which is like a freak. I reckon this is where QAnon came from. This page here, like if you sort of spread that off, this is where it all came from. There's a whole thing about like, what's it? King George was the founder of the Scientific Society. Is also the Earth representative in the Interplanetary Parliament. Yeah, so it's just like this whole like David Icke kind of conspiracy theory that the king is something to do with like some kind of like secret space government. But so you'd think, this is all, it's called Space Facts and Fancies. So they got like several paragraphs of just made up shit, like black holes could take you to another dimension. And then like a very small paragraph of like talking about Neil Armstrong, which then gives that, it's like, well, did you just run out of space for like made up shit and just put a real bit in there? It's just.
So when I was reading these factual articles, and as you say, that the facts are tenuous in places, it got me thinking. I can understand why they choose space, Doctor Who space, but what do they use? Because they've run out of things to say in this annual. What do they use in all the others to fill up? Are we back to recipes again?
And one of them, it's like a 2-page like advertorial for some like rocket company in England who just send up rockets to take photographs, and it's almost like they've copied the text out of like their documentation they give out at some exhibition somewhere. But it's quite interesting. They're still sending those rockets up until 2005 apparently.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So it was. What was it called? I thought putting post-its in this book would help me find things, but I put so many in them I can't find it. And also, did you find that there's lots of pages where they put dark blue text on black and you can't see what it is?
Yeah, there was a point where I was trying to read it in bed with just like a lamp on, and it was impossible because you need to have full sunshine or you have to have the big light on in your living room to get through some of the pages of this. Otherwise you're just not reading it, which I'm sure was very useful for the kids of 1977 who were reading this before they went to bed. Yeah,
with a torch under the covers.
Yeah.
Did you have the torch with the red-green filter you could flick between?
Yes.
Yeah, and you could do Morse code on it. Why do all torches you get now have a setting which you have to have a strobe on it before you turn it off? It's like, when would you ever need the strobe setting?
I don't know. Like, it's taking it to a rave. The
Exactly.
sort of people that buy torches are too old to go to raves. I know this because
I got a head torch to go into the loft, and I have to press it 3 times. I have to cycle through all the settings to turn it off, and and like my job is sending emails for like a national charity to try and get money, and I've got very strict rules about how fast I can make gifts flash, so I don't like make everyone have a fit. But all the torches they sell in this country are going to set people off. Like before they how many people have like died having fits because they just tried to turn their torch off?
no such trouble in 1977.
No, you did say I can do as many tangents.
Oh yes, absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely. Tangents are encouraged.
Okay.
So within this, we get the facts about space.
Mm-hmm.
We also get a few sort of tangential Doctor Who games and stuff, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Poor old Sarah. She really does not do well out of any of the drawings here. But there's a maze further into the book.
The Terror Trail. Oh no, the maze. Oh yeah. Yeah,
Oh no, hang on. There's a maze and a terror trail. I'm not sure
Yeah.
which one I mean. I don't mean the maze. I mean the terror trail.
Yeah, which is like a board game. It feels like they've only got the rights to maybe 7 images of Tom Baker, which they're allowed to redraw over and over again.
Yes.
Sarah's in nearly every story. Harry's in some of them.
Yeah.
Some other random, like, made-up companions are in 1 or 2 of them as well. Even, like, in 1976 when this came out, Sarah wasn't a companion of it. It's so... But none of the pictures look like her at all.
No. But they don't even consistently not look like her.
No.
She changes from story to story as to what she looks like. I'm looking at the Terror Trail right now. There are 3 pictures of her, and if it wasn't for the clothes, you would think it was a different person in each picture. And I'm assuming that's Harry with the blonde hair, obviously.
And the green turtleneck, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Always known for his blonde hair. It was his trademark look.
Yeah.
There's another game about shapes a bit further on, which happens on the planet of Jim Morris, and the inhabitants are called the Jim Morrisons. Which, I mean, blows my mind.
Well, one of the things I've written here, every story, every character will introduce themselves by name,
Yeah.
then what their race is, and then we'll give a short summary of what their society is and about what kind of civil war situation they are in with, and talk about like the government within there. And it's like no one does that. You never go, "Hi, I'm Ross Cleaver. I'm from Dorchester, and we have got a Tory government, the local government at the moment." And all of the names are just fucking gibberish. The names of characters and places, and I know all the names of like races and planets and Doctor Who are gibberish, but we're used to a certain sort of like collection of. But this is what I feel like when you was younger. I think we don't quite have so much a stigma around science fiction and fantasy now, but when I was younger, there would be parodies of like this kind of stuff. And you can see where it came from, and it just comes across as like a Lewis Carroll kind of poem of where there's just loads of made up words, just like one on top of the other, and it just you get to the point. There's like paragraphs of this stuff. Like there's one story where they're talking about the Lumidolphs and the Mongs. It's just, oh man, it's just.
They're very big on world building, I would say. As you say, they introduce themselves and tell you all about the planet. And then the Doctor and co will go through some hardships. But they're not so big on plot, because whatever the story is, it tends to happen in about the last 2 paragraphs of like a 2 to 3 page story.
Yeah, exactly. So like there's one here with the Medusians and the Lumidolphs and the Mongs and all this kind of stuff. And they outline the problem for like 3 or 4 pages, and then it's fixed within a paragraph. It basically says, at last, broken in spirit, the Medusans abandon their raids for the Glist, the Pyrodols, and his wife Dion, and the Doctor negotiate a peace treaty. So basically, the Doctor just fixes it in 1 sentence, and then that's the end of the story. Or they just talk about. All of anything which the Doctor does to resolve things often happens off screen, as it were.
Yes.
A day later, the Doctor like fixed that, and then he went home.
The Doctor also has usually been to the planet before,
Yeah.
knows the race. and also has some friend there that he just, needs to see one last time. In one of the cases, he runs into his old mate who's been stuck on the planet for years, and he called for help from the Doctor because he wants to see home one more time, and then he just dies on the spot.
Nearly every single one is some kind of civil war going on, isn't it?
Yes.
Between two races.
There's a lot of wars that get resolved very simply. Like, one of them, early on in the book, is called Cyclone Terror.
Yeah.
In which the Doctor lands on a planet and quickly gets caught in a cyclone and transported 5 miles down the road, essentially. Yeah. He meets his old pals, the Zotons. They've been invaded and are being attacked with cyclones, and so the Doctor just uses a giant fan against the Xanons, I think they're called, who invaded, and just blows them all away with the giant fan. And he says, he basically goes, "Yeah, I've killed them all" at the end.
And it says, as to what will happen to them in the future, who can say? Only time can answer a question like that. But none of the dialogue is what you imagine the Doctor to say. There's a point in it where Harry's complaining about Sarah Jane, and he says something like, "Women just moan." What is it? It's just a trait of women for them to just moan. Yeah, and there's another bit in one of the comics, like, the Doctor sort of gets dropped down a hole, and Sarah gets dropped down a hole, and he's going, "Oh my God, Sarah!" I've never heard the Doctor blaspheme. The Body Snatcher is the sort of the weirdest fucking. It's like there's 2 comic strips in there, and it's like some kind of like Lovecraftian nightmare.
Oh my God, it's like something I genuinely think you could go into a modern art gallery somewhere and see the art from this on the walls, and everybody would go, "That's fucking weird."
and I've got here. You don't do this in comics. So there's a bit that you don't just stop in the middle and have a paragraph of text of like descriptive text of stuff you can't. So it's like neogenic reactors hum into action. The Doctor feels as if 1,000 knives are slashing away at the pit of his stomach. The cold steel is slicing through the invisible bonds that keep body and soul together. His eyes will not focus, his jaw is locked. He cannot hear. As he struggles for breath, his lungs will not respond. He fights with all of his being to cling onto the spark of life. But the power of the rascal's neogenic body separator is too great. There's a flash of pain and a scream, and he's floating. And there's a picture of, like, a skeleton with Tom Baker's like curly hair on the top of it in a terrifying black void.
It's too much for kids. And just the prose there, the cold steel slicing through his invisible bonds. There's another point later on where it says something like it was like someone reached into his chest and started groping his heart or something like that. It's like towards the end, in the name's the same thing, there's suddenly a very busty woman tied to a rock, and you're like, at no point has there been this much human accuracy on anybody apart from Tom Baker. And then the moment you get a chance to draw a scantily clad woman, you're like, perfect. These are the illustrations we need. I do wonder. These were obviously we don't know who wrote this book. No. There is no record. I do wonder whether these stories show up in multiple annuals, perhaps with the names changed, and those very vague silhouettes are that we get in the artwork, and vague-looking monsters are not just reused bits of art.
Oh, I definitely think they're reused bits of art, because like there's this one, the Menace on Lupita. Like, I feel like this is something where someone has drawn the pictures and then someone like had to made up the text afterwards, because they're fighting like robotic jaguars who have had their brains turned to rubber, or something, and there's like pictures of like, who is that man? Who is that hugging? There's pictures of like people hugging like leopards and things like that, and none of it makes sense at all. But it reminded me, because I feel like this person had lots of pictures of jaguars or leopards, which they just wanted to reuse. And
maybe from a wildlife annual or something.
Exactly. It reminded me of this other amazing annual I've got called Play It Safe with the Stars by Dave Prowse.
Right.
Have you come across this?
I think I know what this is.
So essentially, I feel like someone who's got lots of leftover images of celebrities from like the Looking annual, and then they sort of like put them together with like safety tips for children. So this is like fishing safety with Chris Tarrant. So there's a picture of Chris Tarrant and then talking about like how not to die from when you go out fishing.
Excellent.
And we've got basic first aid with Basil Fawlty and Manuel.
I'm not sure they're the people you want to teach you basic first aid.
Car safety with Cliff Richard. I was like, do you really think you can play it safe with the stars of the 1970s with your children? Paul Daniels telling you fireworks safety with Paul Daniels. So I think there was Doctor Who is in this. So there was a Tom Baker's in here.
Is it running with scissors or something like that?
Telephone help with Doctor Who. So Doctor Who teaches you how to call 999 in this book. But I think there was a big thing with artists that are like, I've got a collection of drawings. You can have these like for a job lot, and then you can kind of like put them together in your annual and just make up some content around them. Night safety with Patrick Moore. A picture of Patrick Moore and like kids on a chopper bike.
I know that art does get reused because I've seen something appear on the internet and it was in like a Joe 90 annual or something like that. And it's a picture of a very, very familiar face that we all know, Davros's, but with a mohawk covering up like the thing that goes over his head. And it's obviously been done for one of these annuals. And then the artist has gone, well, I just put a mohawk on that and that can be one of Joe 90's enemies or something like that.
It's insane, man.
They're obviously churned out very, very quickly. And I can see why the writer might not want to put his name to this. But you've got to wonder, like, were they aspiring writers? Did they ever, like, did they write their perfect novel? Have they got an illustrious TV career they went into a few years later? Or was this everything they achieved and their names aren't even on it?
If someone said to me, Ross, you're going to write the stories for the next Doctor Who annual, I would see that as like, wow, this is an amazing opportunity for me to get all of the things I've ever dreamt that Doctor Who could do into this book.
Yeah.
Whereas this is probably like, this guy had to write the Joe 90 annual, the Dalek annual, the Doctor Who annual, the Professionals annual. So like, you probably had to do all of those within like 3 days, you know,
absolutely.
and just churn out that shit. And I was saying, like, a lot of it does sound like it's been written by ChatGPT, you know, and it was. I imagine it was a case of like, you know, I'm just going to put myself on a stream of consciousness of like just random shit happening on a planet, and then when I get to a certain word length, then I'm going to say, and the Doctor negotiated a peace treaty and then went home.
I'm just envisioning this guy, for I'm assuming it's a guy, just sat in like a brown suit and like the tie undone. Like he goes to work with his tie up there in the morning and then he undoes it. He goes down the pub and has 3 pints of mild at lunchtime and only eats pork scratches. And then he sits there chain smoking for the rest of the day until he's bashed out a kid's annual.
You can smell the smoke on it, okay?
Yeah.
When you was a kid, so there is a story, the time snatch. The word fingered is in it several times, and stiffened. When you was a kid, when you had school textbooks, if there was words like stiffened or fingered, would you like circle that so that
absolutely,
other kids...
yes. Yeah. So everybody knew what you're into.
Yeah, and there'd be a case of like, you'd write, go to page 6, and there'd be another, go to page 7, and like and it'd be like a treasure hunt through the book, like following, and then you'd finally find...
Yeah. Did you do that with this annual when you were reading through it?
No, I really wanted to, but then I still have that kind of thing that I've got to keep it in the best condition I possibly can, even though it's something. It's. How much did you buy your one for?
So I bought it for, it was like a £1 plus postage, and I know I've got a copy at my dad's, but the idea of getting my dad to be able to search through a box to find the annual was too much. So I was like, I'll pay $2.50 or whatever it was, including postage.
Yeah. So we know these are worth nothing.
Yeah.
But we still think, okay, well, I've got to cover in postage because I can't possibly write in this thing. Because at some point, because I think we all grew up thinking that one day those comics in that box, that's my retirement. I don't need to get like a pension.
Turns out it's not. It's only the 60s annuals, and not the first one, because they obviously printed too many and Doctor Who wasn't as popular as they thought it was. Yeah. But like the last couple of Hartnells and the Troughtons and then the first Pertwee, I think go for well over £100. And then all the others, they're literally like £1. It's like...
Do you know that Jawa that went for shitloads of money recently? The Jawa. My brother said that he had that, sold it on eBay for like £50, and then the guy said it was a fake, and did a thing to say and got a refund on it,
Wow.
And then he never got the money for it. So and I'm saying, do you reckon that's the actual Jow in the box that guy just got 15 grand for?
While I was doing a little bit of research for this, in 2013, some of the artwork, which we do know was by a guy called Paul Crompton, showed up in a Sotheby's auction and
Really?
went for about £1,500.
I think the artwork is really good. I got this and I did like a video of like all the pictures and had it as like an animation, and it is like some kind of really fucked up like psychedelic Doctor Who dream. And I think standalone, out of context, they are amazing images.
I kind of want to release them as a Doctor Who make your own adventure where you just pull the text out of this thing and be like, here are the images, tell a story.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of what they do. But some of them, there's this like a space riddle me re, which really complicate this like a cryptic sort of like quiz. But there's some really quite frightening imagery and lots of skulls, kind of like Romanesque sort of like robots like breaking the arms of busty women and stuff like that. It's great. And Cyclopses.
And we say they get Tom Baker right most of the time, but one of the War on Aquatica, which is one of the first stories, or the first story. The first picture of it is Tom Baker, and I don't know whether you've ever seen the Mutations, which Tom Baker was in, which is basically him in a freak show. It's definitely within the remit of your podcast, so it's something you guys should cover. Terrible film. And it looks like they've actually based the photo on him in that in heavy prosthetics, because he's supposed to be in the shadows, but he looks like he has facial deformities.
He's stumbling out of the Groucho Club at like 3 o'clock in the morning there, isn't he? With his toothbrush in his pocket, looking for a sofa to sleep on for the night.
And there are other points, as you said, we recognise a lot of these pictures, but then there are other points in the annual where you're just like, why is Tom Baker just a guy in a suit? It's just like, we all know the silhouette of the Doctor. You've given it us loads of times. We're not just going to be fooled by, oh yeah, here's a guy in a suit, and just because you see the back of him.
There's so many pictures of him from behind. You wouldn't get away with that now. It's let's just do lots of pictures of Shooty from behind, or just a generic man from behind. They get the gist. This is a man in a suit.
And very occasionally there are pictures where he's quite clearly wearing John Pertwee outfit as well. There's a couple, and it's like... But then I wonder, is there a picture in one of the earlier annuals, the John Pertwee ones, where he's in the same pose and they've swapped the heads out?
I bet there is.
Because Doctor Who is so over-analysed and so overly documented that we've got the full history of so many things. It's so lovely to cover something where all we can do is guess, because we know nothing.
Yeah, and also there's no brand manager involved with this. No one signed this off at all, did they?
No, absolutely not. And if they did, quite frankly, they should be fired. I love that it exists. It's just absolutely balmy. I mean, I'm just coming back to the Body Snatcher, and the first few pages of that, it could be Tom Baker, or it could be an actual picture of the guy who wrote this annual, because I sort of imagine him looking very similar.
Big Finish is never going to do an audio adventure of any of these, is it? Are they?
No, but the BBC have started doing not full annuals, but collections of annual stories as readings. Not full cast, but
really, what sort of era?
I think it's all of them. I think it's like you can't get the 1977 annual, but you might have a story from that, and then a story from a Hartnell. I
can't believe these are so shit.
Yeah, but would they be better if they were read to you by John Coleshaw? And the answer is potentially yes.
People would buy any old shit. I think if Doctor Who's taught us anything, people will buy any old shit.
If this podcast has taught anybody listening anything, it's the people will buy any old shit, because we've covered it here. So we've talked about the art, we've talked about the stories, the features. Is there much more we want to say on this annual? Because I feel like we could just sit here for hours and do every page, but it's probably best not to.
I think post some of the best pictures on your Twitter and people can experience it for themselves.
Absolutely.
I wonder how many of these are in existence. I wonder what the print run of these things are.
There was loads on eBay. But there will be a finite number. But then also I wonder whether it's the sort of things that inevitably when Doctor Who fans move house, they go, these are only worth £1. I can rebuy them back anytime. So whether there's just always a certain amount in circulation, because they're never ever going to be rare.
I wonder when I die, how many hands this book's going to go through in the future. And
how long?
Is anyone going to
how long do they last?
And when they accidentally wipe all Doctor Who off of the internet, and they're all missing episodes, and this is the only sort of record of what the Tom Baker era was actually like. People are going to think that was fucking insane, man.
Doctor Who's been off air for years, and then somebody picks up this annual in a charity shop in the year 2000 and goes, "We should adapt this as a television series," and the cycle begins all again.
My biggest thing is this is not what Doctor Who was like in 1977. This is not what Doctor Who was like in even 1976. So it's so mental that they really go, okay, let's hang our hat on Sarah Jane and Harry, and when they gone such. At what point did the people even know? Were the people even watching the program who were doing this?
I doubt.
Because a lot of those stories, there's unit stories in there. It could be John Pertwee in a lot of these stories easily.
I feel like if they hadn't watched Doctor Who, they tuned in the Saturday before they started writing it to get a basic idea, and that's what they would base it on. But you're right, it is not written by anybody who has ever seen the show in any great detail.
It's generic science fiction with people from planets beginning with Z, mainly Cyclops, and they all communicate telepathically as well. One of the things I was thinking, they've all got such weird fucking names, which you can't actually say out loud. Why doesn't the TARDIS translate names? Because a lot of those things would be, that would, when you go to other countries, you say, that is their equivalent of the word John, or that's their equivalent. So surely everyone would just be, I'm John from the planet, and everyone calls their planet Earth anyway, so they would all say, I'm John from the planet Earth, But why does the TARDIS just say, okay, I'm gonna leave that bit in that weird box?
Just that one bit. I can tell you Google Translate doesn't work on any of those names either. So we must surely rate this.
I don't know.
And it may be a tough one to rate, because the rating system is clanger, banger, or average meander. But I mean,
I would say I found it really, really hard to stay awake reading any of this stuff, and the content of it is just bollocks. It's some of the worst shit I've ever read. But looking at it, it's amazing, and talking about it with other people is amazing. So I don't know how to rate that. I
mean, I'm saying that we can't rate it.
It's unrateable.
Because it's unrateable. Yeah. It is shit. But we've sat here for an hour talking about it, and truthfully, we could probably do another hour just going through page by page. The artwork is incredible. The stories are terrible. I mean, it's just a gift that keeps on giving. It
is an actual work of art. This could win the Turner Prize. It is. It is almost like it's you can't categorize it as you can't rate it. You can't put a value on it. It is just something which is it's just inexplicable. So that's your new rating.
There we go. 2 inexplicables from us.
Too hot for TV.
As you know, as the listeners will know, this podcast covers Doctor Who, and specifically Doctor Who that isn't on the television. We're going to cover something now that is both on the television and not Doctor Who. So Ross, what are we covering, and why are we covering it?
So we're covering the 2005 live version of the Quatermass Experiment. So the reason we're doing it is because I wanted something which I could watch, so I don't have to read anything, because it takes fucking ages to read anything, and I'm a lazy git. But also, so my podcast is about British horror and a lot of Hammer stuff, and we've covered the 3 Hammer Quatermass movies, and I thought it'd be really interesting to do the TV version of this, but also it seems to be infamous that this is the thing which David Tennant was working on when he found out he became the Doctor, and it's got so many Doctor Who adjacent people involved with it, and Quatermass was such an influence on the development of Doctor Who. I thought that this would be. I'm hoping I could shoehorn this into your format. So you agreed?
Well, shoehorned we have, and actually, the moment you said it, I was like, okay, I can see how this will work. And as you say, Doctor Who shares a lot of DNA with Quatermass. Part of the early development of Doctor Who, there's bits of Quatermass in there and bits of Quatermass in the Pertwee era. And I also think it's interesting that this happens the same year as Doctor Who comes back. It's like the two are intrinsically linked forever. And that like Doctor Who may be the big commercial successful version of it, but Quatermass has sort of always existed in the background. So I was like, do you know what? It's good enough for me. It's good enough for you. It's going to be good enough for the listeners. And do you know what? You don't pay any money to listen to this. So if I want to cover Quatermass, I fucking
turn
will.
off. Fuck off. If you're still here.
Yeah, you've just had an hour on Doctor Who annuals. We're going to do Quatermass.
Yeah, but also because it was done live, it was a multi-camera thing, and with filmed inserts, which goes back to like how they originally did Doctor Who in the 60s and stuff. So I thought it was a good opportunity to see, because so many people going, well, why don't they do a special episode of Doctor Who when it's filmed in the way they did it in the 60s, and this is essentially it. This is what it would be like. Yeah. So I thought it was interesting to have a look at it like that.
On your podcast, you've covered the 3 Hammer Quatermass stories or films. They were obviously TV stories before that. The Quatermass experiment, only the first 2 episodes exist, but the others exist. Are you familiar with those?
I watched these first 2 episodes of Experiment. I've seen some of Quatermass and The Pit. And I've watched the John Gielgud series, the ITV Quatermass 4, which is, I love that. That's my favourite version of it. But
me too. It's bloody
it's
brilliant,
insane,
isn't it?
It's from my era, the era of stuff I'm interested in, really, where people just did mental things and got away with it and got money to do things and time and an exposure just to do something really, really crazy. And I think people were a lot braver back then. But so I really like that version of it. And I know that the purists will say the TV versions are the best versions. Personally, I find them really fucking boring and hard to watch. And I would much prefer to watch the Hammer versions. And I know Nigel Neal himself didn't like them that much. But for me, it's all about the idea of the story, and I think they put it across quicker. And I'm a man with a low tolerance for boredom, and it allows me to sort of get that story nice and quick, and I enjoy that version.
I suppose I would describe myself as a Quatermass fan. I really like Quatermass and The Pit, both versions. I really like the second television one, the Quatermass. Is it Quatermass? Oh, it's just called Quatermass 2, isn't it? Quatermass 2. I really like that, although it could. Like sometimes just jumping into the movie version's easier because
and it's got Sid James in the movie, and it's got Sid James being machine gunned to death by a load of fanaticists, which is good.
I don't really like the 2 episodes that exist of the Quatermass experiment, and I'm not a huge fan of the first Hammer film either. So it was quite interesting coming to this, I was going to say modern adaptation, because when I said to somebody I'm doing it, I said, the one they did a few years ago, which of course was not a few years ago.
We are old.
It was 19 years old. So, I mean, let's jump straight into it. How does this version compare to the Hammer version and what we know of the other TV versions?
I think it's really interesting to see how they did it at that period of time. It looks very much like the first season of Doctor Who. Like whatever they're filming on, it's the same kind of cameras and everything, and the way they sort of cut to sort of aerial shots of the sprawling metropolis of London and stuff, and the way the music is playing and stuff, and just the sort of the actors they pull upon. It's very evocative of that era, and listen to the commentary. They did a DVD commentary of it, which is available on YouTube. It's just really interesting about how they were trying to work out when to set this, because they wanted it to be contemporary, but they wanted to keep a lot of the 1950s kind of dialogue and stuff. So they kind of thought, okay, we'll make this a kind of alternate reality where they got flat screen monitors but old style phones, and people are wearing sort of slightly anachronistic kind of old fashioned clothing and stuff, and they've got quiffs, but they're also it's not. I really enjoyed it. I think some of the constraints of because I think it was this was part of a BBC 4 kind of season they did about what was it called? There was some
Television on trial or TV on trial, I think.
I couldn't work out why this fitted within that kind of that remit of what they were doing, but they wanted to sort of show a TV program filmed in the way they used to do it, like doing it live with filmed inserts and stuff. And I just really liked the sort of like the challenge they set themselves of like, okay, let's do this. You know, we've got to run in between different shots, and it reminded me of these kind of live theatre events you can go to now. I've been to like a live version of Frankenstein in a basement of a crypt of a church and stuff, where you stuff is happening in different rooms. You have to sort of run to different places to pick up different parts of it, and you know, you can see the actors sort of like, you know, running from one place to like changing their makeup and trying to get to the next place. And I just like that kind of like, it was so different from what you're used to watching on television now.
It's interesting you say that, because what is one of the big debates that happens online all of the time about, why can't they make 40 episodes of Doctor Who a year like they used to? And I will be the first person to go, well, production doesn't work like that anymore. It's not the way they shoot things, and that sort of production of television couldn't happen anymore. But then I watched this and I was like, okay, you wouldn't do 40 episodes a year of anything doing this method of production. But I was like, this still works. And works really, really well in a way that I was expecting to. I watched it at the time and really enjoyed it, and I own the DVD, and I think I watched the DVD when it came out like 6 months later. I've not seen it since, so I was expecting it to be ropey as hell, but actually I think it stands up better than the first season of Doctor Who, which you compared it to, because the first season of Doctor Who has all these effects work which were cutting edge for its time, but now look really ropey. And
it couldn't do it. They couldn't do any of that. They just don't do it. They work around it, and they think of different ideas. So the DVD version, I know they slightly edited it from the live version, because there's a bit where someone fluffs their lines, don't they? So they put in like the rehearsal clip for it, and I think like, yes, you could do multicam stuff now and you could cut it to make it tighter, because there's certain points in this where you can tell they're waiting for their cue, so that it's not as slick with the cut between things, where like you'll go somewhere and there's a little bit of silence before they launch into it, because I think they had earpieces or people were cueing them. But you could easily do something in this kind of way and then just tighten it up afterwards, couldn't you?
Yeah. So did you watch the broadcast version?
The version I watched was on Daily Motion, and it had the bits flashing up about the Pope dying. Yeah, so I imagine that's the broadcast version, is it?
Yeah, there was no Pope death in mine. I would love to watch that as well, actually, because it says on the wiki that there was a few errors, some fluff lines, several on and off camera stumbles, background sounds obscuring the dialogue, and at the programme's end, a cameraman and a soundman appearing in shot, which were all removed in my version. But even so, that's not bad for an experiment, and also a Quatermass experiment. If you were to attempt to do something like this, not as live, but just as a quick way of producing dramas, a bit like they still do on soaps to a certain extent, it's interesting how they can, just with a few edits, tighten it up and have something that I do think stands up as a bit of TV.
I thought it was good. I think it worked really well. It's interesting. So we had David Tennant in here just prior to being Doctor Who. And we got the famous element where was it Quatermass who changed the line from "Hello Gordon" to "Hello Doctor" or something like that? Yeah.
Yes.
I think that was really nice. But it was interesting seeing him in that role, and you can see a lot of sort of doctorish kind of delivery for his lines and stuff, and you know, even like putting on the jacket and stuff, I can see that kind of thing.
Mark Gatiss tells the story on the making of that he found out on one of the rehearsal days, and then he waited until they'd had their mics taken off or something like that, and then he was like, I need to tell you something. It's like, oh, what's going on? And it's like, Chris is leaving Doctor Who and they've asked me to take over, which is just like amazing to know that happened all while they were working on the revival of another famous sci-fi show at the time.
And do you think that was like Mark's heart just broke a little bit again, knowing that he's never going to get that part?
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame, isn't it? But like, Mark Gatiss isn't the sort of person you would cast as Doctor Who, but I know he had his heart set on it when he was younger. And I also think there is a world where Doctor Who came back perhaps more in a bit of the vein of Randall and Hopkirk Deceased reboot with Vic and Bob, where someone like Mark would have been perfect to play the Doctor in that form. But he's just not the right material.
But they did that Doctor Who night thing, didn't they? When he got a couple of sort of scenes with him doing it, but
yeah, and he's played the Master for Big Finish multiple times, so you know he gets to play another iconic Time Lord.
So, what did you think of his performance in this?
I thought he was really good, and actually, there's a thing that people think Mark Gatiss can only play comedy well and do a variety of different accents and things like that, but he's really good at playing sort of the straight part in this, and he does a harrowing scream towards the end when he dies as well. So I loved him.
I thought he was really, really good in this. I think he can't get away with some of his physicality. Like there's a point when he ran, and I thought that's Mickey from League of Gentlemen running. But I think that it was a really good opportunity for him to play something which you're not used to him playing, and it was good to see him in this.
There's been a long lineage of people who have played Professor Quatermass, and it's by no means sort of as an iconic a part as, say, the Doctor or James Bond, where people largely feel that they've got it right every time. But how does Jason Fleming square up as Professor Bernard Quatermass?
So I feel like, and I'm probably, again, I know there's lots of people who've got a big Quatermass fans. I feel like he's always an inconsequential character. It feels like each of these stories, and pretty much apart from some of the Hammer stuff, you know, each time it's been a different person playing that part anyway. You could just give that person another name, and it doesn't need to be the same person in every story. The fact that these things have the name Quatermass in the title, I find it's a little bit strange. It's almost like it's a cool word, so therefore we're going to put it in there. And it's interesting that each of the Hammer Quatermass films had different titles in the States, and there was a bit of like people saying, well, you know, you're losing that brand here. You're losing the people. Well, I like that first Quatermass film, so therefore I'm going to go and watch the second Quatermass film. But I think obviously in the States they thought, well, it doesn't matter. You know, it's just a standalone. Each one of these are a standalone sort of science fiction story. I think the guy who did it this time,
Jason Fleming.
he was in he's been in stuff I haven't watched.
But he was quite a popular face of sort of British drama at the time. So he's exactly the sort of person you would cast. And actually, this Quatermass does get a bit more to do. Like, he has the big showdown in the end and has quite this big speech, and I think he plays it well. But I think you're right. Each one of the films is an ensemble piece, and Quatermass may be the de facto lead character, but just like those films in here, all the other supporting cast have just as much to do.
Yes, in this he does at the end defeat the unseen monster by like sort of appealing to its humanity. But I feel like, much like the Doctor in the annual we've read, he's just someone who's just there while everything is happening, and it's made me feeling a bit guilty because like something he did off camera, which wasn't in the story. He feels like maybe put some people at risk, and like in the Hammer films, he's just a prick as well, and just like and at the end of the Quatermass experiment, the Hammer version, he just like all of this has gone wrong. Loads of people have died. The world has been put, and he's just like, well, I'm just going to go and do it again, and he just sort of walks off, and he doesn't learn anything from it, and he's an absolute prick. So I don't see the Quatermass character as someone who is a strong sort of pillar to sort of like hang a franchise on, because people and I've talked about it on my Twitter just to get like as clickbait. What would you do who would you recast as Quatermass? What would you do to bring Quatermass back? But I feel like that unless Nigel Neal's writing it, there's nothing really there for it to be like an ongoing sort of like franchise.
And I think that's why we haven't seen loads of reboots of it. Like, I know Hammer in their new form have tried to do it. I know at one point Jeremy Dyson was writing a version of it. I think Mark Gatiss was writing a version of it. But I think it gets to a point where you go, what do we have to do to bring this up to date? What story are we telling? And if we're not telling one of the 3 original stories or the one of the 4 original stories, then you might as well do something new. And as we said, the sort of lineage of the casting it isn't like all these iconic actors played this role. Actually, some of the TV ones, one of them died shortly after because he was a raving alcoholic and barely fucking delivers his lines in the actual version. It's only really the casting in both of the Quatermass and the Pit that we're like, oh, they've really nailed the casting this time. So, I mean, I think when people clamour for more Quatermass, it's like, well, you can just do something new.
Nigel Neal sort of talked about a prequel set in like Nazi Germany, didn't he? Or a young Quatermass Adventures or something, but I don't think he actually did anything about it. But there's that sort of floating around that people maybe sort of cling on to. That might be something that they could do, but it's not the story machine which Doctor Who is, whereas you have this concept which you can spin off into so much other stuff.
I think they do well to update it but keep it true to the roots of the story, and as you say, where they sort of set it in this slightly sort of ambiguous universe where it could be the past or it could be the present, and this format feels like the right way to tell this story again in tribute to the old version, rather than trying to do a multi-million-pound movie that everybody's going to go, Quatermass, that's a silly name, what does that mean?
And I agree with you. I think Quatermass Experiment for me is the least interesting out of all of them, but I think that out of the least interesting version, this is probably the best version of that. I enjoyed this retelling of it.
And what do we think about how they handle the monster in this? Because it's in the other versions, it's very much a physical monster, whereas here it's sort of an essence that takes over a building almost, is what it feels like. He even says it's in the structure of the building. I think
this is really hard, because I did watch this when it went out, and I can't remember what I thought of it back then. And I know at that point I hadn't seen any of the other Quatermass stuff. But I think watching it now, having absorbed it, it's really hard to not look at that with your knowledge of what other versions of it is. Because you kind of like fill in the gaps with like your mind's version of like the tentacle monster up in the rafters and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I don't know, or I have no memory of how this would work to someone who's coming at this absolutely cold. Because it's a shame you're not seeing it, but I can imagine what it looks like because I've seen what it looks like in other versions. Yeah, I can see why they didn't do it, because they couldn't, and they kind of felt like it would be better to be left to the sort of audience imagination. But I think this has been made by people who've got all of this sort of like all of this Quatermass baggage in their heads anyway, so that they can, people can imagine it because I can imagine it because I've already seen it. So it's interesting.
They did a follow-up a year later, didn't they? For the A for Andromeda.
Did they?
And did it exactly the same way, which I've got on DVD as well, but I haven't seen that since its original transmission.
Who was in it?
I honestly can't remember, because A for Andromeda doesn't exist, and the Andromeda Strain, the follow-up, does exist. And I remember buying the DVD from, I think it was 2 Entertain early on, of the original one, and being like, oh, this is supposed to be another classic, and just being like, I cannot get through this. It was just so boring. But I think I remember the TV, like the live remake, being more interesting. So I will go back to it.
But you've got that excitement though of knowing it's been done live, though, haven't you?
Yeah. We've talked quite a lot about this already, but do you think there is room in the modern TV landscape for more experimental stuff like this?
I don't know. I think, like we were saying, that people are going to have to make TV cheaper. So this could be a way of doing that kind of stuff. Oh, it's tricky though, isn't it? Because it'd be really hard for them to justify doing this on something like Doctor Who, because people have an expectation of a certain level of quality, and they could do it for like Children in Need or something, I suppose, couldn't they? But I think they would struggle to sort of like push that out on something which is an established sort of property. But it might be fun just to like, okay, that we're gonna. Do you remember that thing with Sylvester McCoy? It was a kid where like kids had to write what they think is going to happen next, and then they would run that out. It could be something they could do for a kids program. You know, if kids trying to get my kids to watch CBBC is so fucking hard. It's like I can manage to get them to watch Mallory Towers. That's about it, really. But anything else, like, I don't want to watch Blue Peter. I said, come on, it's good for you. And it's like, oh, it's not the same since Lindsay left. But
Do you think this is a successful bit of TV in terms of, like, can you tell it's live? Does it have that energy?
It's really hard, isn't it? Because it's really hard to... If I just switched over to watch this, you'd be thinking, what the fuck is this? Yeah. If I had no knowledge of it. But I think, I think it only works if you know this is live and like they've done the live episodes of EastEnders, haven't they? And things like that.
Yeah.
So going back to what I was saying about trying to do this with an established property, they have done it, and it has been like a bit of a stunt type thing. So ignore me. You can do it. People have done it, and
I think you have to publicise it heavily, don't you?
Yeah,
you have
people
to
need to know what it is. People have to
Yeah.
go in with their expectations sort of like set at a certain level.
Yeah.
And people are watching it because they want people to fuck up, don't they?
Yeah.
That's what it's for. It's like an extreme sport, isn't it?
Yeah. But you've got to be fairly sure you're not going to fuck up if you're going to do it and have a contingency plan.
Yeah.
I loved... I didn't notice it, or don't remember noticing it the first time round, but I loved all the transitional shots they did. It wasn't just London or a news report. There was like footage of the astronauts training, which was quite stylishly shot with a camcorder with some lovely music playing over it. And I was like, oh, that's what this is. And like, really, really just like considered and thought out ways of doing it. I thought that stuff was really great.
And they were saying like they were doing the music live and stuff on it as well.
Were
like,
they?
People doing some of the music, not on the recorded bits, but they had people doing, because it ended up running like 15 minutes shorter than they expected, didn't they? So they couldn't just put music on.
Of course.
Expecting it to sort of fit in the, and it must have been really exciting and scary and fun to make. I can see why. David Tennant was saying like that he had to do like speak German, and he's like the whole time he's like, I can't. He said my brain was just saying, you're not speaking German in front of all of these people live on television. You can't do this. You're going to get this wrong. I think they were very brave to do this because and they were saying that they went for people who had theatre backgrounds, and they hopefully they would, if they did start drying, they would be able to sort of like improvise around it and trying to get out of it, but. It must have been, the adrenaline must have been running so hard.
And it's so much worse than doing theatre, because you dry up in theatre and make a mistake, 200, 300 people, 50 people, whatever it is, watch you, and there's no evidence of it.
Yeah.
There's 500,000 people watching, and it is on film forever, and it will exist on DVD and on the internet and wherever else you can find moving images. There's a vulnerability to the performance you suddenly get that you wouldn't normally get, and like you have to be really okay with putting yourself out there, and also like not having a chance to do another take. Like maybe they would have done that differently and wouldn't have liked that in an episode of Doctor Who or Casualty or whatever they were doing. But because it's this version, you have to be okay with your performance not necessarily being how you would like it. Yeah,
and I think they were very brave. But they was talking about it, saying that there were certain scenes that they could never get through in rehearsal because there was corpsing so much.
Right.
And they were just saying that they was just so frightened that they would they got to the point. And the people were improvising in it. They said. There's a bit where Tennant goes in to kiss someone and she pushes him away, and they said every other version they actually kissed, but she decided to do something different in that. And they said the guy who was the man from the Ministry with the leather jacket come up, but they said that he was terrifying because they knew that he would just he would change it every time they did it.
Right.
I'm having to do a thing at work at the moment. We're doing like a charity thing where we have to sing some songs, and I've got like a couple of lines I've got to remember. And I'm going to be doing it in front of like 100 people, and I am cacking myself because I know I'm going to make. But I just can't imagine the nerves to go on television, and and also all of those people there, relying on you, and people, just the idea of someone looking at you, waiting for you to say your lines, and the fear would be, my brain would just would melt. But it's interesting to hear them say that they do have they have the same thoughts and feelings of fear that we would have, but they somehow managed to go past that
to conquer it.
Yeah, and they sort of talk about like they're thinking all this stuff, but their mouth is saying it, and they are acting whilst having all these other thoughts at the same time, and also having people queuing them in their ears and thinking that I've got to run over here at this next point, I've got to get to this next location, I've got to change my clothes in between there. It's just insane. Well done.
It's a brilliant bit of television to watch. As you say, it must be weird if you don't know what this is. I would love to watch it with someone who doesn't know what it is and see whether they picked up on it. I should have asked my girlfriend to watch it with me, but hey ho. Do we think Nigel Neal would have been fond of this version of Quatermass?
Well, apparently they'd run it past him, and there were certain aspects he was.
Of course, he was still about.
He was still alive, wasn't he? Yeah. And I was surprised when I heard that as well. I was going, "Fuck! I thought he died ages ago." Yeah. But there were certain aspects he like. And my brain is going blank for which aspects they were, but I think it was something to do with like the relationship, like the affair that was going on.
Between Karoon's wife and David Tennant's character.
Yeah. I think he wasn't happy about how they sort of changed that and stuff, but I think he was okay with it.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And I guess this is the last Quatermass. This is the last production of Quatermass that there's been, right in front of.
Apart from that, the live.
Yeah, reading.
They did recently, didn't they? Toby Haydock did.
Yeah, and that they said they weren't sure how long that was going to run for, and apparently that was 3 or 4 hours, something like that.
I think some people couldn't get home afterwards, could they? Because they missed their trains and stuff.
I really wanted to go to that, but it fell on my 40th birthday, and so I didn't. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it, but lost to time now. Because
they were saying they're not sure about like the rights and stuff. If they were going to be able to release it and stuff. Yeah, it'd be great.
Is there anything else we want to say on the Quatermass Experiment 2005?
No, I don't think so. I hope that you think there's enough Doctor Who adjacent stuff to this to be worth your while, but it's definitely worth watching.
It absolutely is, and I think if there's any listeners out there who haven't seen it, it's well worth a watch. And there's so much you can pull from it that is Doctor Who related. And you know what? If you really squint, set it like we're all about the alternative universe Doctor Who here, you could probably say it's Doctor Who in an alternative universe with Quatermass and the Doctor interchangeable, if that's how you want to fit it into the Too Hot for TV canon.
There we go.
It didn't make me think, maybe we shouldn't cover this.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you, we must rate this one. Is it a clanger, a banger, or an average meander?
It's a red hot banger.
It is indeed. It's a banger from me too. It was great to revisit it.
Too hot for TV.
If people want to find you on the internet, where can they find you?
I'm on Twitter as Revolting Ross, but the main thing I do is General Witchfinders, so just go to generalwitchfinders.com. And we've done some Quatermass inspired t-shirts which you can buy on that URL. We do General Witchfinders as a podcast. I also do a podcast called Dark Darset, which is me and my friend investigating weird stuff that happens in Dorset where I live, but no one listens to that. But mainly General Witchfinders is all about British horror, mainly from 1972, but we do other stuff as well.
It's a fantastic podcast and well worth a listen. It's always very insightful, and every now and then it drags up a film that I'm like, I've never heard of that, I've never seen that, and it's always great. If you have even a passing interest in British horror films or TV shows, there'll be some absolute gems that you've seen and other things that will pique your interest, so it's well worth seeking out. Next time, I'll be joined once again by Mikey Smith. Together we'll be looking at the two tales of the TARDIS that dealt with Tegan and Perry's life post-travels with the Doctor, and we'll be pairing those up with two Big Finish audios that also look at what they did when they left the TARDIS. First up, it's The Gathering with the 5th Doctor and Tegan. Second up, it's The Widow's Assassin, featuring the 6th Doctor and Perry. But until then, I've been Dylan.
I've been Ross.
And this has been Doctor Who, Too Hot for TV.
Hot for TV.
Some of the stuff, the amount of stuff you cover, I just feel like I have like a real like fear of homework, and like even doing this was like, oh, like John was going to do this for me as well, but he just couldn't bring himself to read that amount of stuff. And I'm just thinking, how do you read and consume so much stuff? Because you bring stuff out, you've been like bringing loads of stuff out like one after the other, and you just feel like, where do you find the time, man?
Well, it's a couple of things. So last year I went weekly for the 60th anniversary, which was, I mean, I cannot tell you how how much work that was, but it was just because at the time I was traveling with work a lot. So I would be reading a lot, I would be editing a lot, I was listening. So it's the perfect time to do it. And the reason so this will be part of this season, and then I'll wrap things up for a bit because I'll be busy on a job. And then I tend to sort of block record episodes. So say there's 6 episodes left of this season. I've recorded them all in the last couple of weeks, and I've got one more to do next week. And it's just so I can tie everything up. So I'll spend like a week, because I'm contract work where I do nothing but watch, like consume this stuff, and then I don't have to think about it for another few months.
Like when you did all that weekly stuff, I would have banked that, and then I've just taken the pressure off myself for like months to go. Yeah,
it wasn't even meant to be weekly, but I just had so many people come up with good ideas of things to do that I was just like, do you know what? I know that I was travelling to and from Belgium every week. So it was like that is 3 or 4 hours of travelling that I just know I will have time to edit and listen to everything. And it sort of kept me out of from sitting there and just getting completely shit-faced on the Eurostar, which and I end up staying in hotels quite a lot with work, and it's basically, this is all distractions to stop me just going and sitting in the bar all night.
I was going to say, it stops you drinking. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and you're bringing joy to like tens of people out there.
Exactly,
Yeah. No, it's good stuff. I really enjoy it.